I've also learned that in real estate, if you buy right, even if a lot of things go wrong, at the end of the day, you will probably still break even. That's the nature of real estate. If you didn't overpay for the property, and if you manage it decently, even if a lot of things go wrong, you will at least break even.
Let's jump in. Today we're talking with Mauricio Ramos of the Medici Group, which is a real estate group out of San Antonio in the multifamily space. So impressively, he has $2.7 million in value under ownership right now, with several hundred units across Texas. And when we look at wealth and resources, especially in terms of the management of available resources, Mauricio has a biblical perspective in light of James 1. So be doers of the word, not merely hearers, and deceive yourself. And this is going to be the focus of our time together. So Mauricio, thanks for joining.
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Such a blessing to be able to share time and knowledge with somebody like you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And before we get into that side of things, of the resources, maybe you could talk a little bit about making the switch from, we know that you made a commercial construction switch into your own organization. And I wanted to see if you could tell us a little bit about that transition.
For sure. Yeah, I'll be happy to help to share. So I graduated as a civil engineer. I'm originally from Mexico. Graduated as a civil engineer here in Texas, and worked for different general contractors as a project manager, building large commercial projects. We did hospitals, high schools, buildings for the government, and then also some public work for the city of San Antonio. And then finally found real estate along the way and decided to dive into it, started educating myself, found, just like many people, a little purple book, and really liked the idea of the passive income, the buy and hold. And that's how it all started looking into that. Then I found multifamily later on as I kept on going. And I was able to quit my job 10 years into construction. And at that point, I was probably about 4 years into real estate, doing it kind of side by side. So the 10-year mark, I was able to quit my job and just go do real estate full time. And
wow,
and here I am.
That's quite a feat if you're doing basically both. So it's almost like juggling two full-time jobs at the same time. You've got this construction and real estate of your own enterprise going on. Well, maybe you could give us some background. Maybe you do have a family. I'm not sure if you do.
So no wife, no kids. At a point, there was a wife, but not anymore. So when I started doing real estate, and while I had my job, I was single, and that's about when I started dating my wife, who became my wife. But she was out of town, so we were kind of seeing each other on the weekends or every other weekend. So I had time to do that. So basically, it was like work, real estate, and then just a little bit of personal stuff, like go to the gym, work out, or just something personal. I typically, did real estate probably 4 days a week, and analyzing properties, doing phone calls, going door knocking right after work for a couple of hours.
Wow.
Sending postcards. I was able, since we were kind of like in our own job site and being the project manager, basically you became kind of like the man of that job site. So I was able to every now and then answer a phone call from a postcard, and nobody would tell me anything. Wouldn't get much distracted from my job, but still had the time or the flexibility to maybe step out and get a phone call for 10 minutes and run some numbers and get back to the person that same afternoon.
Got it.
So it was challenging. I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was manageable.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're using the postcard methods. You're sending out postcards to, was it mostly multifamily, and was it out of state, ownership, or what was the main thrust of the leads that you were generating?
For sure, yeah, great question. No, they weren't necessarily out of state. I was just aiming multi-family, a small multi. My very first lead list that gave me a lot of leads was a 5 through 30 units. They were built prior to, I can't remember, like 1980 or 1990, something like that. So like Class C properties, certain size, focus on certain like counties or locations in Texas, places that I'm familiar with, and of course San Antonio. That's where I'm based out of. Also, that the last transaction was probably like 50, at least 15 years ago. So the person that owned it for at least 15 years.
Mm.
So I was sending postcards to all those people, and then multiple rounds. I would go through the whole list, send it out, and then again do another round and do another round, and probably I would hit it like 4 times, and then maybe buy another list, and then come back to that first lead list, and then
Hmm.
just keep sending it, keep sending it.
That's that comes down to the endurance factor, so the perseverance aspect of waiting. When many people are not willing to wait, they're just like, this real estate thing's not working out. I tried the
Hmm.
postcards thing. This isn't going the way that I want. I'm done. I'm finished. I'm going back to my W-2, or I'm sticking with my W-2.
Absolutely.
Maybe you could speak to that a little bit in terms of how you found the relationship between effort, time, and results.
Absolutely. So I think when when I was doing all these postcards, and like you said, the waiting endurance part, which it's always it never gets easier, but when I was doing that, I still have my W-2 income, so I was doing it for the long term, not for the like that check, that one check or closing, because I needed to pay my bills. My job was paying for my bills, but I was able to do this on the side, and spend 1,000 here and 1,000 there on postcards and stamps and all that good stuff. And when when I decided to make the leap into real estate and quit my job, I had done a solid 6 figure wholesale fee
Mm-hmm.
on a multifamily property that allowed me to have that cushion to say, all right, I can take the leap, and even if it's low, I can go sometime because I have this cushion, because I got this 6 figure check here,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
was able to invest it, which I actually invested most of it on my first 10 year in apartment community that I had bought while I was still an employee. That was my first property, still being an employee, and after a few wholesales as well.
Mm. And do you think that, based on how we see real estate as believers in Christ, coming from that perspective, what I'm seeing is there is a tendency for short-term gains, in order to make sure that that quick pop is there. But I know that we're called to persevere as believers in Christ, and that kind of adds to the training ground of being, how our characters work through by the Holy Spirit. Have you ever considered those two, and how the Holy Spirit has interacted with you as you've made these decisions to play the long game, which it's clear that you're doing that. It's not about the quick pop. How has the Holy Spirit informed you in those decisions that you've made?
That's a great question. I feel like it's a very deep question, but I think the way I've seen it, as God has taken me from one thing to another, and then to the next one, and just to bigger and better things. I feel like God has a huge plan for me, and even though I feel like I've been very blessed and I've seen great things, there's still something even bigger ahead of me,
Mm.
and I'm convinced that God doesn't give me; He gives through me, and along the way, He's taking me where He wants me to go. And as long as I don't lose sight of Him, and I keep Him first place, there's just something much bigger in front of me. And so so as I endure, the whole process, doing, bigger things and being blessed with bigger, achievements, I can see that there's something bigger, and it has to be about something bigger than yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
it's about helping more people. I feel like that's how I seen it, and I like that. And it's at the end of the day, it's like, hey, Lord, take me where you want me to go. Yeah.
Mm. So making yourself available
Yep.
so that you have a certain amount of flexibility that comes with the trajectory that you see yourself on, making yourself um, flexible enough that you're able to switch lanes or go and make different types of decisions as you feel you're called to do that.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your relationship to money along those lines, similarly, and resources a bit. Did that change over the years, or do you think that now you're thinking about it in the same way as you did, say, 10 years ago when you were getting into, you're a few years into your W-2 civil engineering construction job? Has that changed for you? And if so, maybe you could talk a little bit about the reasons that it changed.
Good question. Good question. I think it has changed. Um, I hear a lot of people say, well, evil. I mean, money is the root of all evil. It's not that. That's incorrect. It's the love of money that which is the root of all evil. So
Thanks for that.
yeah.
That's
So
we need
there's
more of that. We need a
yeah.
lot more of that.
So it I think makes a big difference, that clarifying that extra word in the beginning makes a big difference, because it's the love of money. I mean, so, and I don't love money. I love God. And then money is a vehicle, right? Money should never be a problem, right? And if you really truly from the bottom of your heart put God first place, you'll never lack money. You'll
Mm.
never lack resources. I mean, it's not going to appear in front of you. You have to be available. You have to take action. But if you always put that in front of you, but if you put the Lord in front of you, and if you feel like you're doing His will, money will never be a problem.
Mm.
It'll just come. Um, and and I can tell you that when I started putting God first, when I started really, I grew up Catholic, and then started more, just I started feeling more comfortable in the Christian or non-denominational environment, and really establishing, basically, when I think when I put religion aside and I said, all right, this is about Jesus, that's it.
Mm.
And I started having that relationship with Jesus. Just, I mean, since then I have been able to give back just a lot more than what I ever dreamed about giving back, right? And I can tell you one thing: you will never outgive God.
Mm.
So so the more you give, it'll come back to you 10 times. You don't know where it came from. It is just incredible, and in being able to help other people, and again, it's when I help other people, I don't see it as me helping other people. I see it as, wow, Lord, thank you for helping that people through me.
Yeah.
Thank you for using me to help them, because I know at the end of the day is His will. So if you see, like, I'm answering your question. I'm trying to answer your question about money, but it's hard for me not to put the Lord first in that answer, because that's the way I see it. The money just comes and goes, just flows
Mm.
through you. And again, it's a vehicle. It'll take you to places. And then before, yeah, I saw it more of a need or of a resource that you needed, and you had to like shelter, or like keep as tight as possible to your body. And that's not the way money should be looked at.
So I can see that this would be for those who are like hear you talk about these things, that's a confidence builder for generosity, towards building more generosity into a person's life, into a believer's life. Just having the understanding that if we cannot outgive God, and he's ready to sort of deploy resources for kingdom purpose through us, we should be all the more ready, willing, happy to be cheerful about um, giving to giving to those opportunities, and holding that stuff loose in our hands, knowing that it's not up to us, it's the Lord's resources. And I think that's really helpful. I think that that's missing in a lot of the conversations that we have about money. I know that sometimes it's talked about in, sometimes among sermons and different blog posts and things like that. But having that perspective, I can see that needs to be talked about more, because sometimes we don't talk about the blessing that we can experience firsthand from that.
100%.
Going back to the initial phases of your early multifamily, maybe you could talk about an unexpected failure, or even up to now. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your an unexpected failure that has occurred for you, and maybe something that you learned in the middle of it.
Totally. So there was a property when we bought. It was like our third property. It's a property that I found here in San Antonio through a broker. I had just sold my 10 unit full cycle. Had some money in 1031 waiting for another property, and found this property, 28 unit apartment community. It's outside of San Antonio. Solid property. This was, I think, like October 2019. And so I was looking for another property. This would have been my second syndication, and found this property, got under contract, inspected it. We're ready to buy it. And in the midst of kind of like my financial or financing contingency, or financing period, the and as we did the inspections, things started getting a little tighter and tighter as far as like finding other stuff that we needed to fix, like heavy stuff, like AC. There was three buildings. One of the roofs was like maybe needs to be replaced. So things start just to get tighter. Just the numbers are starting to get tighter, and then I get a call from the lender and says, "Hey, your rate's gonna go up. I don't know, like 40 basis points, in or more." And then he also said, "And it's going up. And if we cannot rate lock, so if
Wow.
it might go even higher, it might go down. I don't know. I cannot guarantee anything, but we still had probably another 3 or 4 weeks to close. So here's just so you know, right? It just went up. It might come down, not as low as you had it originally, but it might also go up." So after a few days of thinking about it and just kind of running the numbers with the new interest rate, it was like super super tight, to a point where I was afraid. I was like, if I close on this and then three AC units break on me and I have to replace them, like that year, it's gone, like it's blown, right? It was
Mm.
that tight.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to back out. So I backed out. I basically lost like all the inspection money and stuff. I still was able to get my earnest money back. Um, but I mean, I did and done some of the attorney fees, some of the startup fees that I lost. But later on, I learned that at that time of the year, every year, lenders raise their interest rates like that. They fluctuate to kind of shake off the not so strong deals because they're looking to close a year, like
Hmm.
around October, November. So I learned that the following year. I also learned that it was gonna work. Honestly, it would have worked. It would have been a good deal. I would have bought it, and would have been a good deal. It was a little bit of lack of experience, I think.
Hmm.
So that was a lesson learned. I probably lost 15K or so, maybe 20K on just fees.
Wow.
Uh, but would have been a good deal. I mean, I was inexperienced and I was just afraid. Uh, so I mean, I learned that I should have closed on it, but that was just definitely a lesson learned that I got scared by a little increment in uh, in the interest rate, and also that also taught me to be more conservative on my underwriting,
Yeah.
to know that I need more cushion in case that happens through the closing process, right? So always be on, like, give yourself like at least like 25 bips
Hmm.
on your underwriting. So I mean, when it closes, if it ends up being less, 25 bips less, that's just gravy, right, on your
Yeah.
deal. But you got to make sure that it works even at a little higher rate.
Yeah.
So multiple lessons learned there, but yeah, I mean, missed out on a 8 unit apartment community. I also didn't find another a replacement property for my 1031, so I had to pay taxes on like 100K.
Ouch. That just wow. Before I ask the next question, can you fill us in? You mentioned BIPS, BPS. Can you tell what that means?
Yes, absolutely. So a BIP is like a point, 1 point of a 1%. So 1%, um, it's 100 bips. So for example, if like when I was talking about increases, so say for example, my interest rate was at 4% and it increased 40 bips or basis points, is it went from 4%, 4.0 to 4.4%.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. That's that's a lot of money. How do you think you'd do that differently? Or, you'd mentioned building in some cushion and making sure there's a more conservative valuation in the underwriting process. But do you think you would make decisions differently other than the underwriting and making sure that the values were in place? Do you think you would change your decision making?
I would, that definitely broadened my risk. um I'm missing the word here, like how much risk you're willing to take. That lesson definitely brought in that in me.
Hmm. Hmm.
um uh, I'm missing that word, but
The risk tolerance?
my risk tolerance, yes. I definitely, it's like, yeah, okay, I'm willing to take, now I'm willing to take a little bit more risk, because at the end of the day, I've also learned that in real estate, even if you buy right, even if like a lot of things go wrong, at the end of the day, you will probably still break even.
Wow.
Just that's the nature of real estate. That's the beauty of it. It's if you bought right, if you didn't overpay for the property,
Hmm.
and if you manage it decently, even if a lot of things go wrong, you will at least break even, at least.
It's a funny investment vehicle because it's got so many things, so many wonderful things going on for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe you could talk about something that you see professionals in real estate space they you think that they should start doing, based on what they're not doing now, or something that they should stop doing.
I feel like I see a lot of people wanting to go the I, most of the properties that we bought are off market. We reach out directly to sellers, right? In Or word of mouth from a seller to another seller or something. But nothing wrong with brokers. But I feel like a lot of people just want to do things by the book, and like, oh well, you have to talk to every broker in town, and take him to coffee, take him to lunch, that stuff. Nothing wrong with that, but there's other ways to find property, and that is the most overrated way.
Mm,
So get in line. There's a lot of people doing the same thing. So if you want uh, to find a property, you really have to think outside the box and do things people are not doing. So you can put yourself out there. Now that said, that requires a lot of action, right? It's nice to go talk to people and just go take coffee, but people are not willing to, sit down and put stickers on 300 postcards on one evening, uh, because that's a lot of work. And well, I'm just, I'm a civil engineer and I shouldn't be doing that. Well, I mean, somebody has to do it, right? And a lot of people tell me, well, it must be nice to do a 600, a six-figure wholesale fee. Well, but yeah, that's pretty cool. But are you willing to spend every evening of your week putting stickers on postcards?
Such a good question.
Yeah, well, no, somebody else should do it. Well, okay, then somebody else is going to get the six-figure fee. That's it.
It's almost like you're saying there's a cause effect relationship there. It's just weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I heard John Maxwell said the other day. I mean, people tell him, "I want to do what you do." Well, are you willing to do what I did?
Mm.
Right? If you want to do what I do, I didn't start doing this, so but a lot of people are not. So take action. Really, that's what it is. That boils down to take action
Mhm.
and be different. Do something. Do what people are not willing to do. And of course, just each person is different. I respect that. I'm not trying to, uh, be the evangelist or anything, but keep God first place.
Okay. Then here comes a personal question. Then when I have, for at least one from my experience, I sent out postcards starting, say, April in multifamily within the region of Houston and the greater Houston area. I found that I received a couple of phone calls after having sent out maybe 400, and there was maybe three phone calls that came in, and this was from not just in multifamily. It was multifamily, it was mobile home parks, and it was also, I think there was a mix of multi-site, in a couple of multi-sites in there too. And
Mhm.
I found that there was actually the multi-site ones were the quickest to call, and then mobile home parks was the next one. Maybe you could talk about what was your rate of response.
So we typically, when I was, and I'm not in that huge habit of sending those. I'm trying to get back to it, but when I was doing it consistently, probably about 300 a week, 300 postcards a week consistently, same day of the week. Uh, and I would get probably about 10 phone calls,
Wow.
which, out of the 10 phone calls, uh, you know, s- you know, half of that or less were like actually good to send offers or get the numbers, blah blah blah. And then actually, I mean, probably out of 1,000 or so, one would be into the conversation of a contract, and then finally close. But that's about the number. More than that, uh, your phone just starts ringing off the hook. More
Mm.
than 300, or at least that's what I found out. Especially when I was at work, it was that's how I found my 300 number, because more than that, I wouldn't be able to make my to do my job and answer phone calls.
Okay. Okay. So it's about uh, one, one in 1,000. You're finding, okay, you will find a good deal after
Hmm.
sending out about 1,000 mailers. Do you
More
have
or
a
less.
format that you like to use in terms of, you use a pre-printed mailer, you just put a stamp on it with some sort of a phrase, or what's the format that you used to use?
Yeah. So I have, I after many iterations, I have a colored postcard that I print at the local printing place. Uh, I think like Office Depot, it's everywhere. So just go there, and basically it's you print it on a 8 by 11 sheet, but you can print four of them and then cut it. So I have my own design in, and then I put the addresses, and there's a stamp and send them out. So I've tried the like the pre-made mailers, or the ones that you can upload a list and just pay for it.
Mhm.
I just feel like those look like every other postcard in your mailbox. Like I always try to look at it when you go and open your mailbox, right?
Yeah.
You, you immediately your croc brain hits in, and then as you start just throwing away the stuff that you don't want to see, right? All the credit card stuff and all the publicity. You start just throwing it away without even looking at it, right? So you want yours to look different. So if you in my opinion, the ones that I've seen from the web pages are just gonna go to the trash. Rarely, and I've tried them, and again, really no response. So the ones that I've used are where I've gotten a better response. They're more unique. So it's a quick format that I have, quick phrase, nothing crazy. Typical. Hey, my name is Mauricio Ramos, real estate entrepreneur. I'm interested in your property. Let me know if you're interested in selling. We'll give you an offer. I speak Spanish.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. That's a really, really interesting how you sort of A/B. I'm looking at the time here going, oh my gosh, we're way over, but this has been a very, very interesting session for me. So thanks for taking the time. Before we go, I wanted to mention probably top 4 things that we've taken for this conversation. How you've been convinced that God is giving through you, that you've considered yourself rightfully a conduit of God's blessing in order to bless others. And that as you've received greater achievements, greater blessings, that has likewise allowed you to make larger investments in kingdom purpose, which has fueled your love of giving for the sake of the kingdom. So I think that's a helpful distinction. Likewise, another distinction that the love of money is the root of all evil. It's not that money is the root of all evil. I think that's an important thing that doesn't get talked about enough. And then how, if you're putting God first, you'll never lack the resources. We can read that in the Psalms. David wrote that I have never seen the righteous go hungry. And that's absolutely true from, every side of things. We can see God's people are taken care of by our benevolent Father as his adopted children. We see that. Great reminder there. And that your suggestion that you have to take action, but it has to be within the context of doing it in the right way. If you take action, there's going to be some risks and also some rewards that come alongside that. And then your discussion on how when you went through that multifamily situation, when the interest rate went up, and then how you backed out, what you learned from that, the fact that your risk tolerance grew, and that you learned that at that time of year, the rate fluctuates in October and November.
Yep.
Because of you having gone through that, that's not something that you would have known before, which just tells us the importance of experience in the mix.
Absolutely.
Mauricio, I really appreciate our time together today. I've learned a lot of really good information and feel very edified by our conversation. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close?
No, I'm just it's funny that you mentioned at the very end edifies. I mean, the word also says go edify each other, right? So I'm happy that I was able to share good stuff with you and your listeners. Thanks for having me, Sean. It's been a pleasure. God bless you and your listeners, and let me know if you guys need anything.